my name is Kate. I'm a specialist occupational therapist, and today I want to chat to you about demands that trigger your child's behaviour. Hello and welcome to this video. I am Kate. I'm a specialist occupational therapist, and for many years I've worked with families who say that, I ask something like put your shoes on and it triggers a meltdown. I ask them to put their coat on and it triggers a meltdown. And something that appears so simple to us can really appear very complex and very overwhelming for children. And firstly, I want us to think about in relation to children with the sensory processing difficulties, and that generally can be quite heightened in arousal. So, their nervous system's heightened, they're managing their day-to-day life, they're managing the sensory input that they need. And it's the same for us when we are feeling stressed or anxious ourselves. So when we are feeling stressed or anxious, your other half might say, where's my shoes? Or what's for tea? And you might go, I don't know what's for tea, because your nervous system's heightened. And although it's not a big question, it's a natural day-to-day life, but actually that is triggering for us and that is overwhelming for us at that moment in that time. And so in relation to kind of sensory systems and motor systems, it is thinking about the balance of it. So for children who have got foundational sensory difficulties, they can sometimes have difficulties with motor coordination as well. So it comes hand in hand. So, doing motor actions, which is basically moving our body in any way we need to. So that could be using a knife and fork, putting a coat on, putting our shoes on, brushing our teeth, anything that we do on a day-to-day basis requires us to do some motor actions. So it's a bit like, if you imagine some skills, we've got to balance this out in relation to sensory regulation and the motor demands. And so if you've got a child who's really overwhelmed and really stressed and really heightened, they may be appearing to be okay, that they're doing okay, they're functioning, they're doing things you want to do, but actually then you ask them to do a task that triggers the overwhelm. And that can be because their sensory systems, they can't cope with just another layer of clothes on. It could be that they can't cope with the motor actions. It could be that actually on a day-to-day basis, that when they do put their coat on, that they get some support, and this can fluctuate. So when children are more regulated, they will be able to do more motor demands. And this is often why parents will say, but some days they can do it and then other days they can't. So I know they can do it. So when we are more regulated, we have better skills, we are better to engage with in interaction, we have better skills to be able to do things we want to do and do our work. And it is the same for children. So if you imagine that the scale kind of gets tilted in relation to their regulation, and then all of a sudden that demand that appears kind of an everyday simple task to us can actually be really complex, because within a motor skill systems, we have to think, we have to know where our body is in space, we have to be able to plan our skills, we have to be able to organize ourselves, we have to be able to sequence our motor actions so that we're able to do this successfully, all whilst being able to cope and manage the sensory input that action gives us. And sometimes that sensory input that gives to the body is just too much, and that's what triggers the overwhelm. And that is why it is so important for us to stand it, so that then we can support the child further down the line to be able to either put their coat on or recognize the signs of the overwhelm and the dysregulation for children. Because sometimes they're not the obvious signs of dysregulation, they're not in a meltdown, they're not being aggressive, they're not withdrawn, whatever it may be that your child does. Sometimes it is more subtle. And so recognizing maybe the pupils have dilated, maybe they're getting flushed in the face, maybe they're sweating, maybe they're talking a lot, maybe their speed or the volume of the speech has got changed. These are all signs of dysregulation. And so it's being able to recognize that, so that perhaps then you can then scaffold an activity so that it doesn't trigger overwhelm. And then from that, it's recognizing that actually it's not a purposeful distress, and it's not a purposeful avoidance, but actually it's a stress response. And so moving forward, it's doing something that will regulate your child's nervous system. It's not kind of, well, if you're not going to put your coat on, I'm not going to give you this, or I'm not going to take you here, or we're not going to do this. It is purely kind of helping them regulate their nervous system. So understanding and learning what regulates their nervous system, so that then you can implement those strategies to be able to have a calmer evening or a calmer day moving forward. And this is really about just knowing your child's nervous system and knowing what is truly effective and regulating for their nervous system. So I hope this has kind of made this a little bit clearer, because I know it can be confusing. If you've got any questions, please drop them below, and please click the like and share button. Thanks. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.